Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that really helps to get my channel promoted, and I do appreciate that. I also love it when people leave comments, so if you have a question or a suggestion for a video, or if you want to tell me how you do things, or if you just want to say hi, that's great too. So in the past I've done a few different tension settings, and what I mean by that is the setting is designed not in kind of a traditional bezel or a prong setting, but some other way is holding the stone in place, and it's basically just pushing together, kind of keeping it there. And I've seen ones like the one I'm going to make today, and I've never tried to do one, so I'm going to give it a shot and we'll see how it turns out. I picked out it's about a 15 by 8 oval amethyst, and so it's a pretty good sized stone, and we're going to give it a shot. I didn't come up with this basic idea. This will be my interpretation of it, but I think it should be a fun one to try. Before we get started on it, though, I wanted to thank some groups of people. The first group is my patrons over on Patreon, and I have a new one. Simone, thank you for signing up. I really appreciate your support. And I think you'll find when you get to know some of the people over there that they're a great group of people with a whole lot of knowledge and are super friendly. So enjoy getting to know them, and I look forward to meeting you over there. So thanks for signing up. Thanks to all my previous patrons as well. I view you as my primary supporters, and I really appreciate it. My other group is my YouTube subscribers. We just passed 21,000, which is great. Thank you for that. That's amazing to me, and I really love the comments that you leave. It's nice to find out that people are getting something useful out of these, and sometimes your comments are very touching, so thanks for that. Oh, and I also really appreciate the super thanks and the buy me a coffees and people who buy my merch or my ebooks. That stuff is really helpful in keeping me afloat, so thanks for that. Okay, well, let's get started on this project and see what we can come up with. This is one of my design idea sketchbooks. I have a bunch of different designs of this in my merch store. This particular one has a gauge chart on the back that converts it into inches and millimeters as well, which I find pretty useful. Some of the other ones have different charts on the back. I like them mostly because it gives me a place to keep a record of my projects. And so when I want to go back and figure out what I've done in the past, it's a nice way to have a record of it, as well as the materials I used and all that kind of stuff. So I recommend starting that process if you're new to this. It's a good way to remember what you did. So here's today's project. I made one side of it just to see how it would work with the stone that I have, because I've never done one quite like this. And it's made out of 14 gauge square wire. This part is anyway. The only other thing I'm going to use is I have a little bit of I had a slab of silver that I cast out of some scrap a while back, and I needed some. I don't have any sheet that's as thick as 14 gauge wire, so I rolled it out a little bit so I have a slab of it. I'll use that for a spacer that's going to go between the top of these wires here, because it's going to be two of these that split at the top. And then I had two different stones I was thinking about using. I have this blue topaz, and I have quite a bit of amethyst because one of my patrons gave me a bunch of amethyst, which was super nice. And so you'll see a lot of those, but it's going to go kind of in here, where this top part here is going to hold it in place. And there should be a little notch in this spacer that's going to go in between these two wires here. So we'll squeeze it together to hold the stone in place. And like I said, I was thinking about doing this one, but I don't think this one will work very well for this particular setting. If I slightly change the design a little bit, I might be able to make something like that work. But I've had this blue topaz for a while. It's kind of a dark one, so it really needs to be set up kind of high to get as much light as possible. And so I've been playing around with different ways to use that, but I don't think today is going to be the day for that one. So we're going to use the amethyst instead. I think to start with, let's make another one of these, and then we'll hook them together, and then we'll probably have to cut a little piece out of the slab with the saw, and then saw out a little kind of marquee-shaped center for the pavilion of the stone to sit in And the bigger that we make that slot, the lower the stone will sit. So we need to kind of calculate how thick to make it in order for it to sit in there nicely so this top part will put pressure on it. If that makes sense. Okay, so let's make one of these, duplicate that one. This is one of the reasons I like these books, is because I can draw a sketch and then I can use that as a guide to how long a piece of wire I need. So let's start by making the ring here, and then we'll make this piece that goes on top and solder them together. So I think let's just use our ring manual here. This is what I did on the first one anyway. Get it started kind of on the low end down here. If you make it round on a small size, you'll end up, as you slide it up the mandrel, it'll stay round. If that makes sense. So we'll wrap it around here a little bit, get it kind of relatively round. And we'll slide it up till it's the same size as that one. That, I think it came out to be a little bit over a 9. See how close we are to that. That's pretty close. Let's cut one end off here so it's relatively flat. I'm just doing a little fine tuning of the size. I don't care that much if it's round right now, as long as it's round enough for me to tell that it's the same size. That's pretty close. So let's cut that off and solder it and see how it looks. Go ahead and file these ends flat. It's Memorial Day weekend this weekend, so I hope you all have a nice Memorial Day. And get those lined up nice. If you haven't been to my channel before, I use primarily hard silver sheet solder. I use a liquid flux that I dribble on with a dropper bottle. My torch is a Silversmith model. It's an acetylene air torch. It mixes the acetylene gas that comes up through here with atmospheric air in this chamber here, and so the gas burns a little bit hotter than propane, but not as hot as oxyacetylene, because you're not pumping oxygen directly into the flame, you're pumping air. So it's perfect for silver as far as I'm concerned. Or they're not a sponsor of my channel, but I do really like their products. Okay, so I'm going to cut a little bit of this hard silver sheet solder. Hard solder melts at about 1450 degrees Fahrenheit. Cool that off and make sure we got a good solid solder joint. Let's see if we can't kind of like, sometimes you get a little bit of a wobble in your band, so I'm going to try and do that. And square wire does have a tendency to, when you start to bend it, it has a tendency to try and turn sideways, and so you end up with it not being all in the same plane. And where you have a flat edge out here on some of it, it'll be turned a little bit that way. So And that's not a desirable outcome, so we want to correct that as we go, maybe. Okay, let's round it out and see where we're at. That comes to about 9 1/4. That's pretty close too, 9 1/4. I got it pretty close on that. Not bad for one of them internet silversmiths. Okay, so these are going to be sitting like this to hold the stone. Okay, so I'm going to file the top of this just a little bit. Get rid of any irregularities. Alright, so now we have to make some pieces. So I think what I did on this one is I made one piece here and then I soldered 2 straight pieces like that and then I curved them. So let's get this kind of curved a little bit. You could do this around a ring mandrel if you wanted to. I got a little too far there. Okay, if I want this to be the same exact size, I think let's do the marker trick. So I need it to be right where this is. So we'll make a mark there. I'm going to cut it off a little long so I can file it flat there, because the cutters don't cut perfectly. You could saw it if you want to. Now that we can line that up with the end there, like that, should be able to get it pretty close. I don't think my curve is perfect, but we can adjust that later. Pretty close on the length, though. I might need to take just a skosh off. Just a skosh. So far it's okay. I want this to be pretty symmetrical, so I'm trying to make the angles and everything the same. I think that's going to be pretty close. So let's, I'm going to cut a couple of pieces. They don't need to be super long here, but just long enough to create that curve. How about like that one? This probably, if you're new to this, wouldn't be a beginner project. This would be more of a intermediate to advanced, I think, because of some of the soldering you have to do. But if you're looking for beginner projects, There's a whole playlist of them over on my main channel page, so go to the playlist page and look for beginner projects, or easy projects I think I called it. Or I also do something called pick soldering. If you're interested, I'll put a link up there for you. It's where you pick up a little bit of solder like this on the end of a, this is a titanium soldering pick. Sometimes they're tungsten. Titanium doesn't transmit a lot of heat, so you don't even need a handle on it. Oops. It's a nice way to kind of advance your skills. I didn't get everything hot enough there when I did that, so there we go. I'm going to put just a little bit more aside. Now we kind of need to make this match that, right? So, to start with, we cut these top pieces off, at least pretty close, and then we'll file them flat. Okay, so I don't want this top to bend much, but I do want to bend these sides outwards, so I'm going to kind of try and brace that so it doesn't bend much there. Then we'll take a peek at where we're at. That's actually really close. This one may be going out a little bit too far. The first one, it took me a little bit of adjusting, so I'm getting lucky on this one, I think. That's close. That's not too bad. Let's cut it off a little bit longer than that, then we'll file it down towards just perfect. I think let's solder those together. So that looks pretty good. I still have some solder over here. I think that's probably close enough to call good. So what I'm going to have to figure out, I'm going to get this a little bit cleaned up, and then we'll start doing some adjustments. Okay, I just kind of cleaned it up with my Dremel a little bit. I want to get an idea how much space I need between these two at the top. because it's going to sit in there kind of like that. So I think if we measure that, got about almost 4 millimeters, pretty close. So if I go 3.5, that'll make it a little snug, which I kind of want. So let's do 3.5. That's pretty close, actually. Actually, let's scribe a line on here first. That would make more sense. And then to make sure it's the right width, just going to follow that line. That should get us pretty close. So I think let's go over and saw that out. And I don't know how long I'm going to leave it in here, but probably at least from like there to there. That should be long enough, I would think, because I probably want to have as little of that as possible so more light gets to the stone to make it really sparkly, but we'll cut that square out and then we'll figure out how long we need to make that little trench in there and everything. So I apologize for the mess over here. I'll try and cut most of it out of the film. Video, I should say. I got a 00 on here, which is small for this thick metal, but I have a better luck with the skinnier blades, honestly. Oopsie. Okay, so we got our little slab there. I'll file that up and then we'll see how it fits in there. Okay, so I cleaned it up a little bit with the file. I didn't do the ends much yet. I did scratch an X in the middle because I want to measure out, I think I remember what I did was I took the width of the very bottom of the pavilion here, which is about 9 millimeters. And so I was going to cut a notch about 9 millimeters in there. But I made the X on there so it'd be easier to find the center. So let's see, maybe we should scratch some lines in. Let's go 4 and then we can use a diamond burr to kind of widen it and shape it how we need to. As far as putting these together, I'm thinking I'm going to curve it a little bit and then solder it down to one of these, and then we'll figure out a way to solder the other side in without having anything drop off. But I think I can use hard silver sheet solder on this side. But first we got to dome it a little bit, so let's use my I'm going to put the X that I have on there facing downwards. looks pretty good to me. So let's I was thinking I might need to have it slope just a tiny bit this way. I'm going to go ahead and solder that on. A little easier to hold to file. So I have that soldered in there. This thing is going to try and move around when the solder or when the flux starts to solidify. If I'm not careful. So we'll dry it a little bit slowly. Somebody asked me the other day why I heat the flux after I put it on there before I put the solder on. And most of the time it's because if you place some pieces of solder there and then flux it, first of all, putting the flux on there may move them out of position, and certainly when you're heating the flux, when you start to get ready to solder, the flux boils, and that generally moves things around. So we're going to just probably pick a little from the side here. Again, we got a couple of chunky pieces of metal here. Let's take a look at it before I mess with it anymore. I moved it a little bit because it looked a little bit crooked to me. To do that, you have to get that solder back to a liquid state, and then you can kind of nudge things around a little bit if you're careful. So let me find my easy solder. I didn't used to use much of this kind of stuff in the past, but it is on occasion pretty useful. So. Alright, let's try that. Now, easy solder melts at about 180 degrees less than hard solder. So, a little careful heating, we should be able to get that to flow without reflowing the hard solder. That's the idea, anyway, behind using different kinds of solder. I used to just use hard solder sheet solder for most stuff. I still do, mostly, but there are times like this when it's pretty handy. Let's see if it worked. Now I think I'm going to spend a little time making this. I guess I'm going to have to I can't see the X anymore anyway, so I think I'll probably have to recalculate the center. I'm going to spend a few minutes filing like this, so you probably don't have to watch me do that the entire time. I'll show you the end result when I'm done. Okay, so a couple of things I did off camera. I kind of spread these open a little bit, and then I tried to find the center as best I could, and I drilled a hole for the saw. And I think I'm going to start by going to about there on each side. And we'll just saw kind of that way, and then on the other side too. So let's go saw this, see if we can get a nice clean saw job. So I think for the rest of it, I'm going to use probably one of these diamond burrs to kind of come to a taper like that. And we'll clean that up and get it as smooth as we can. And then we'll see how the stone fits. Okay, so I got things kind of cleaned up. I got that notch kind of cleaned up inside of there. I will likely do a little bit more polishing up inside of there because I want it to look nice. But that's going to fit right in there. And then I think what we'll do is after we get back after it's polished and pickled for a while before we polish it, actually, probably use my nylon jog pliers to pull it together and get it in there nice so it's tight. But that's just going to sit up just like that. I think that'll be pretty. Okay, well, I got things kind of polished up, and I'm going to try and get this to sit in there securely. And I think I'm going to kind of just position it in the center, and then we'll pull it inwards with my nylon jog pliers here. So I'm looking at it to make sure it's sitting relatively straight, and it actually is. So. And what I did was I pushed it in straight like that till it was pretty tight. I don't want to squeeze too hard or you could chip the stone. And then I pinched these on the ends just a little bit. But I'm going to call that good. And that, I think, turned out actually quite pretty. I like that. It really gets a lot of light to the stone. Like I said, I didn't create this type of setting, but this is the first time I've tried one like this, so all credit to whoever first came up with this. But either way, I will take some better pictures and put them at the end. You tell me what you think about it. Do you like it, or do you... For a long time, I didn't love these kind of settings where the stone was just kind of perched in midair. But they've grown on me a little bit, and I like this one. So, all right, well, I'll get some better pictures, and we'll put them at the end. That was the amethyst high-profile tension setting. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. I'd love it if you'd take a moment and go over to my main channel page. I have 480 some videos now. That's a little more than 3 years worth of 3 videos per week. I publish one on Tuesday, one on Thursday, one on Saturday generally, as well as my Patreon gets some extra videos over there. So I produce a lot of content, and there's a lot of valuable videos over there, I think. You're almost certain to find something useful or interesting over there. There's tons of projects. So check it out. Subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to check out my video description down below. There's a lot of relevant links down there. One, there's a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea books or some other merch. We should have a new t-shirt coming out pretty soon, so keep your eye out for that. There's a link to my Patreon if you want to find out more about that community. It's a great group of people, and there's multiple tiers of membership there. You can get into the lowest level and just get all my videos without any advertisements in them, which is kind of nice. There's also some other tiers that involve some exclusive content and some live streams and things like that. So check those out. And finally, if you're interested in having a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips with links to the videos and extra information, you could check out my ebooks. There's two different ones. There's my 2024 one and my 2023 one. Each one has pages that link to all of the videos from that particular year, of which there were 170 plus on each year. And so there's a lot of content there that's available with extra information, pictures, materials lists, difficulty ratings, and extra notes that I put about each of the projects. So it's a great way to have a whole ton of projects at your fingertips, as well as a great way to support my channel. So get yourself one or both of them. If you buy them both at the same time, there's $5 off. So, all right, well, check that out. Come back and see us again. Thanks for watching. Happy silversmithing.